on Thursday. Our next guest joins us with the catalyst he thinks will be the most important for investors next week. So let's bring in Vital Knowledge founder Adam Crisafulli. Adam, it's great to have you back on, and let's start right there. Is this all about central bank decisions?
Yeah, I definitely think the Fed will be the most important event of next week. And we also have a lot of other central banks, BOJ, BOE, Bank of Canada, but the Fed will be the big highlight by far.
Okay. And is it really about the rate cut, or is it about the dot plot and what Powell has to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think a 25 basis point rate cut is very much a foregone conclusion. That's widely expected. It's very likely to occur. I think much more important and interesting for the markets going forward will be, the explicit guidance. So we're going to get an updated supplemental with new dots, new estimates, and then the more qualitative commentary from Powell during the press conference. And I think on an absolute basis, it's going to be dovish overall. We're going to get a rate cut. You're probably going to get a dovish move in the dots. Powell will probably be a little bit more dovish than he was at Jackson Hole, but markets have already moved a pretty healthy amount in the last several weeks. And so we're now pricing in 25 basis point cuts essentially at each of the final 3 meetings of this year. And I don't think they're going to be any more dovish than that. So I think the risk reward heading into this in the immediate term is a little bit on the downside.
Okay. We had 4 big bank CEOs come on CNBC this week and basically say, to varying degrees and with different contexts, depending on who you spoke to, but that the economy is softening. What is the data showing us going into this decision?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we've seen a lot of downbeat economic data, especially on the labor front, which is one of the key mandates for the Fed. We had, the August jobs report was disappointing. The September jobs, the July jobs report, we've had weekly claims this week, had a huge jump. Michigan sentiment today saw a big drop in sentiment. So on the employment side, you're definitely seeing the trends reinforce expectations for the Fed to ease policy. The problem is on inflation. So the PPI this week definitely was cooler than expected. The CPI wasn't any worse than expected, but you still have inflation running a fair degree above the Fed's target. Powell has said that he's willing to look through this for the time being. He thinks the effect of tariffs will be transitory, which is why they're going to kind of dismiss some of the inflation for now and focus on employment. But again, we're already pricing in 75 basis points of cuts this year, and I don't think the Fed's at this point, willing to be more aggressive than that.
How closely will you be watching FedEx, which tends to be a barometer historically, not just of U.S. economic activity, at least through one lens, but also global?
Yeah, definitely. I think FedEx will be one of the big, probably the single most important earnings report next week. There aren't a lot of companies, but they are the most macro. They're very sensitive to what's happening on trade, so we'll get a nice update on kind of what they're seeing with tariff flows. One of the biggest controversies in the market has been the extent to which inventory was brought forward by companies to get ahead of tariffs. So if they were to say that all that inventory is being depleted and now companies are replenishing at post-tariff rates, and that suggests that we're going to see more inflation in the months ahead. And that's definitely going to be a big wild card. They also have a lot of exposure to the de minimis issue as well, and so that's likely to be a headwind for them. So it's on the top line, they're facing a lot of a lot of pressure, and they're cutting costs very aggressively to kind of keep earnings steady. So that will be the most important one next week for earnings.
Yeah, the closing of that de minimis loophole is actually a huge dynamic, and a lot of e-commerce companies are feeling it right now. Very quickly, we got 15, 20 seconds left. But China trade talks, expect anything to come out of that, or just headlines?
I would say just headlines. It doesn't seem like we're on the cusp of any type of real major imminent agreement. I mean, if anything, what's happening on the Russia front, where there's been a lot of talk about imposing secondary tariffs on buyers of Russian oil, but I don't think anything material will really happen next week on the China.